you enjoy my class?
Yes, I did.
Oh gosh, I look back now, and it's my first time teaching history of film. I've done intro to film quite a while, but it's my first time when I see you doing history of film. I'm like, oh crud. Can I say that word in front of you?
Yeah, no. You could swear as much as you want to.
No, I got to set a good example. Not that I don't curse in front of people. Although if I'm by myself in the car, I do say little zinger pops. But one of my summer resolutions is to scale back bad words. Again, I don't do it in front of people, but if I'm in the car, I'm like, you saw me trying to get the over. So then I'm like, ooh, like, have you seen the movie White Chicks?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, in the scene, like, they're saying the N-word, and then like, you can't say that's the N-word, and then like, no one heard us. They're like, oh yes. That's why I'm with like bad words. I'm like, no one heard me. Then I'm like, Lord, you heard me, Jesus. Like, please forgive my heart. You know my heart, you know my heart. Please give my verbal indiscretions in Jesus' name, amen. But I'm trying to do better. I've done a lot better. I think I said one today. Whenever someone I try to get over, I'm like, you better let me over. And I was like, I'm like, oopsie doodles, said a wordy nerd. So I'm trying to do better.
Yeah.
Yes, but thank you. I got your text. I'm like, me on a podcast. I'm so flattered and very honored. So thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. Gerald, kind of introduce yourself to us. Tell me about yourself, what you do, what you're doing.
Oh, gracious. Absolutely. My name is Gerald Jackson Jr. I'm an independent filmmaker. I've been in the film industry for almost 30 years. I have not done Botox. I've not done any, I'll be 50 in a year and a half. I feel it. Although I do. You laugh when when y'all are young, we try to pick something up. Like I have to pace myself. Like, I dropped something on the ground. Oh, so I have to do that now. And back issues. I can't recover from hangovers like I used to. Like, it's horrible. But I've been in the industry for almost 30 years, since 1999. Were either of y'all born in 1999?
Nope.
None of y'all were born. I was born in 1999. And ever since I was a kid, I know I want to be a filmmaker. When I was a kid in the 80s, I was born in 77. So my childhood was the 80s. Like, I remember the summers of the 80s. My parents would take me to the cinema, to movie theaters. Of course, you have to realize this is before social media, this is before smartphones. Mm-hmm. So we had to either find something to keep ourselves occupied, or you were just bored. So in the summers, even also during the holidays or during the school years, to keep us entertained, my mother would take my brother and I to the local Cineplex, and we would watch movies upon movies. And again, this is the 80s, where I remember, not to date myself, I saw the movie Gremlins in theaters. I saw Ghostbusters. That's the Ghostbusters in theaters. That movie scared the bejeebies out of me as a 4 or 5 year old. I remember seeing My Mistake Manhattan to Land Before Time, to things like An American Tale, to things like Rambo, that was the 80s, and I was exposed to all that. And then the 90s came along when, we didn't have a smartphone. So during the summer, it's safe to do some. My parents would say, we're going to drop you off at the mall. We're going to drop you at the movies. Do 2 or 3 movies. We'll pay for them. And we'll pick you up in a couple, 2 or 3 hours. And this was the 90s. Now in the 2020s, you don't do that anymore. But in the 90s, we were a little more level-headed and behaved. And we would not beat people up or do ominous things. So we watch movies. I remember in the 90s when Disney was major cinematic for us, like things like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, to The Rocketeer, to, again, this is the summer. So, and then we would watch things like back in the 90s, in the 80s, I guess the 70s too, the cinema movies, it was like an event. So every summer, I was the summer of Batman, the summer of Batman Returns, the summer of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh my gosh, the summer of when Disney would release their animated features during the summer. So movies were an event.
Yeah.
In contrast to now, where it gets released on streaming and people are like, But now, and back in the day, that's all we had to do. We went to movies or the mall to entertain ourselves, the library, to entertain ourselves. And when I was growing up as a kid, going to movies, it was just taken out of my existence. It was seeing, back, I mentioned our class, like back in the day, movies were, or going to the cinema was a communal event. It was like 20, 30, 100 of us in a room, and we'd we act the same way, and it was an event. It was something we all shared. We had similar experiences, and seeing your neighbor or a stranger or someone you just met go through the exact same experience or the exact same reaction while seeing big images on a movie screen. It was something that, it's something you don't see as much anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really sad, though the box office is sort of post-COVID is sort of coming with an upswing. It was nothing like it is now. Watching a movie on a smartphone or a TV screen, that's why you went to movie theaters or watch the movies or go to the movies, because it was a social event. Something I also want to make, even during the holidays. I remember going to see Scream and horror movies. I saw Toy Story, which was something totally unheard of, because back in the day, Disney did too. They did hand-drawn animation. What is this? Pixar, what is that? And it just revolutionized cinema and movie making or watching a movie. So I just realized being entertained and, taken out of your space and seeing, these big images on the screen and you're seeing these people and you're, invest in these people for 2.5 hours. You see people, I cry and I get getting emotionally affected, to crying, to being freaked out, to being depressed, to
happy to be
very, 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 very happy, to getting excited, to being thrilled, to seeing, I remember saw Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade in theaters, and wow, like whoa, woo, to seeing Indiana Jones whip his little whip and getting excited and seeing him beat the Nazis and getting excited about things like that. It was definitely a communal. It was definitely as a community we enjoyed the time together watching images on a screen. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I just found it amazing, because making these images, you just controlled. You were in power. You were sort of like creating the symphony, and people were entertained by it. So I knew, it was definitely it's a process. It's an art. It's definitely a lot of hard work. And that's something I learned along the way, because when I was a kid, I'm like, this is amazing. Being a director, you sit in a chair, you point over there, you have your coffee, you scoop that little bullhorn, and you go home and take a nap. And of course, that's not the case at all. No. I've been fortunate enough to direct a lot of things over the years, and even a feature, Truly Everlasting. Make sure you check it out. It's on YouTube right now. YouTube, Tubi, Roku, all those places.
Shameless plug.
Yes, I do. What I learned, it's a lot of work, from writing the script to, to working on a budget, to even on the creative end, like casting, to shot design, to shot list, hiring a crew, make sure the crew gels, make sure you work your crew to, and then you spend X amount of time working on the project, to post-production, editing, sound designing. And then when you think you're done with all of that, promotions, that's a whole new ball of wax. So we talked about that in class, pre-production, production, and post-production. It'll take a large, a big chunk of your life, and it's a lot of hard work.
Tell me about that. There's so much hard work getting in the filmmaking industry, and you have just so much energy. Where do you get all this energy from? Especially for the context of like lots of Gen Zers don't have any energy and they're like depressed. Where do you get your energy from?
Are they really depressed? Like Gen Zers, you need to, just take a nap and look at the bigger slice of life. Because it's just something you're passionate about. Because I can't imagine doing anything else. You know what the end result will be, but before that, you sort of realize the work that goes into it. Give you more background. I'm a Jacksonville native. I was born here, and when I really, my original plan was to move to LA or New York and be a big star. But actually, originally I wanted to be a meteorologist. Because I thought, I'd watch the news, and you are a star if you're a meteorologist. You stood in front of that green screen and pointed at clouds, and you're like, whoa, storms are coming, whoa. And of course, I could do that. That's really cool. I could stand in front of a map of America or a map of Jacksonville and point at red dots and say, watch out. But then I remember when I was 10 years old, I met the current husband of our mayor, Tim Deegan. And little did I realize that there's a lot of science involved, a lot of numbers, and a lot of graphs and spreadsheets. And I'm like, this isn't fun. I thought you just stand in front of a map, and then I thought that was what you did. And it's not the case at all. It's very, very science heavy. I'm like, well, mother flubber, I'm going to filmmaking. That's what I want to do. And then, of course, I had to figure out what aspect of filmmaking I want to do. So did I want to, directing sounds fun. And at the time, the force we reckoned with was some schmuck, Steven Spielberg. He just, gosh darn, like he just took you places. Another film I saw in theaters, I saw E.T. and in theaters in 1984, 85, I believe. And of course, the protagonists were young boys that were a little older than I was, but seeing them go on adventures, seeing these characters emotionally invested in this little alien and the adventures that this little alien took them on, I'm like, and I was invested, and I still get emotionally affected by the scene where E.T. says goodbye and to Elliot and his friends and Gertie, and it's just I'm like, I want to do that. I want to tell stories where that when people leave the theater, they'll say, "Gosh darn, those 2 hours affected me, and it took me out of a place." And these characters, they made me think about things differently. They made me I saw a little bit of the world differently. I saw a perspective that I may not have seen, because again, I as an African American male, I was seeing these these males, young boys of European descent, do great things. I'm like, if they can have fun and do great things, I can do it too. Mm-hmm. And so again, I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I was all about Steven Spielberg, and then this '80s, he just kept on popping these little movies out, and it just got better and more interesting, or producing these amazing films. It just got better. So I'm like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a film director. So in high school, middle school, I was heavily involved with TV productions. It was the closest we had to filmmaking at the time, but I took it, and it was a great thing because I did PSAs, I directed / produced / acted in our morning news, and after that, I graduated, went to University of North Florida, our neighbor up the street. I originally wanted to go to UCF because they had a film program, and I wanted to go to that, but womp. Oh my!
Whoa!
Well, but yes, it's a Florida boomer. I applied to it and I got denied. So I was bummed. But you know what? I don't give up. I'm it's one of those situations where, you know what? When life gives you lemons, it can make a good tequila shot.
Why?
So,
Why didn't you give up?
Why?
Dig deeper.
Because I guess I'm like, you know what? Was my other option? If I gave up, I would have to do something I didn't want to do. So I'm like, okay, well, junk biscuits. Well, what are the other options? So I went to UNF. I'm like, and then UNF actually have a strong faith, and it ended up being the best decision at the time. Why? Because I'm from here, and I stayed on campus, but I would go home on the weekends. I lived, and then it was I at the time UNF didn't have a really strong TV production program at the time. It was more
Frank.
It was pre-Frank.
Pre-Frank.
There's a funny story about him actually. So at the time they just had communication broadcast film. And so it was more news focused. We focused on the Turabian, the news workbook. We did more basic TV productions. There was a TV production classes, but they were nothing like they are today. And there's one film studies class. So that was the best job I could do. And I minored in Spanish. I love Spanish. I love the Spanish culture. Okay. So I graduated from UNF with communication broadcast film in 1999. In 1999, I applied to film school again. I applied to 5 schools. I applied to NYU, Columbia, USC, as well as UCLA and UCF again. Got denied from all 5. So at the time, I'm like, well, junk biscuits, not giving up. So I'm like, what could I do in 1999? So what I did was I moved back home with my parents. This is 1999, 2000. Wild time to be alive. Y2K. It was, and at the time, Jacksonville was a hot spot of filmmaking. We had the Jacksonville Film Festival, which was doing amazing. And we were getting these big film projects all the time. I mean, as soon as I graduated, I interned with the Jacksonville Film and Television Commission. I learned a lot about how film works. Again, an aspect of filmmaking that people don't understand is trying to woo a film company or film production to your area. So that's the main job of the Jacksonville Film and Television Commission. I worked with the film commissioner, Todd Rubin, and he was amazing. And one of the jobs we had to do, this is 1999, so we would take pictures, or people would take pictures of our area, print them out, not digital, and we put them in files. And so, for example, if let's say a film production was like, hey, we want a 50s looking square in your area, is there one that exists in Jacksonville, Florida? And this film commission would be like, we do have a period of film, a square that would pass for a period area. So then we'd go through our files, and then he'd say, hey, oh my goodness, San Marco would be an area. So then we would mail FedEx, UPS, these pictures, little squares of little images, something. Do you know what a picture is? Like, so we'd email these pictures to these production companies. So I have a strong faith, and I really believe that I worked at the Film Commission at the right time. When I was there, a film producer you might have heard of called Aaron Spelling was looking at the area. This is 90210, the producer of 90210, the producer of Melrose Place. He then he was doing a hit show after hit show after hit show after hit show, where he wanted to do a new one set in this mystical place you might have heard of called Florida. So, so he was looking at the areas. Again, you have to realize Jacksonville, we had our areas, but we're competing against Orlando, Tampa, Miami, and other cities. So during this time, the film commissioner, Todd Rubin, we were hustling, we were hopping and popping, like trying to woo Aaron Spelling to Jacksonville. So almost every time I was there, he was in his office emailing, phone calls, like, check out Jacksonville. And we were like, he's like, we need a beach. So we like, beaches. Beaches. Here you go. And he like, and then old rustic squares, old rustic neighborhoods. Here you go. So again, it was again, something I learned as an intern. I didn't realize it was a big ordeal to try to get film companies to your area. That's the job of the Jacksonville Film and Television Commission. It still exists. And Todd Rubin is still the commissioner. So thankfully, after all this hard work, Aaron Spelling chose Jacksonville for his new TV show. It starred Gregory Harrison. It starred Rue McClanahan, who known as Blanche and Golden Girls. It starred a whole bunch of other stars. It was filmed here in Jacksonville. So I graduated from Jacksonville University of North Florida, spring of 1999. They started production late summer, fall of 1999. So I thankfully I was able to become a production assistant on the show. For those who don't know what a production assistant is, pretty much it's an entry-level job. And it's your job to support the production. Things like running coffee, running paperwork, picking up garbage, making sure the crew, make sure the director, make sure the producer, make sure everyone's happy. You're very much behind the scenes.
It's a very important job, though.
Are you kidding me? It's just one of those thankless jobs that, it's production assistants. They are needed on set, and it's needed on set. And I got to be able to do that. And you will get a first-hand exposure of what a film production or television show is like. I got exposed to what it was like. It's hard work. 12 weeks. They filmed a lot of the show, of course, Jacksonville, Neptune Beach, St. Augustine Beach, and I live in North Florida near the airport. So driving, we do 10 to 12-hour days during the fall. But for those who are watching the show, Florida in the fall is basically the sequel to Florida summers. It's hot. So 12-hour days. It's hot. We have our rainy season. So it was a lot of hard work. And of course, I got to meet Rupert McClanahan, you got Greg Harrison, who are very big stars. It also got to meet the other cast and crew. I was also going to meet the director. But it's a lot of hard work. There's protocols, making sure you're locking up a set. For those who don't know what that means, if we filmed, let's say, on a square or a block, it was our job as production assistants to be surround the set and letting people know that lock it up. We're about to roll. Have a take, and then make sure everyone's quiet because we had strong microphones to record dialogue. So it was a lot of hard work. It's something I didn't realize at the time, because when you think you think of filmmaking, you think it's actually a very glamorous job, maybe to some, but 12, 13-hour days.
Brutal.
It's tough. But again, seeing the director at work, it like, wow, this is really cool. I'm about to pass out and faint from this heat, dehydrated, but it was just, it just whetted my appetite for wanting to do more. Unfortunately, the show was not renewed, so it was canceled. So we finished filming in, I think, October, November 1999. So it sort of put me in a lurch for a job. So at the time, another thing the film commission did, they were trying to court another famous film director called Joel Schumacher. He did he did Batman Forever. He did The Client. His filmography, who was watching this, make sure you check out his filmography. He passed, but his filmography is very, very diverse. Well, he wanted to do an small indie film called Tigerland, and he wanted to film it in Jacksonville, and so it was a military drama. If you haven't seen Tigerland, check it out. It was a film that introduced a young rising star called Colin Farrell to America. It was his first film, and his co-star in this, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but if you've ever seen Legally Blonde, he played Reese Witherspoon's fiance in Legally Blonde.
Wow.
The guy went to Harvard. He says, and she's like, you're in Harvard Law School. Like, it's hard. That the blonde guy. So they acted in this film. It was called Tigerland. It was a period piece set in New Orleans. They faked Jacksonville for New Orleans, and they faked parts of I can't remember the area it's called, the military base near Orange Park. It's a military movie, and they faked parts of that, and it's a period piece. So I got to work on that. And it was really, really cool to see the process. I was actually in the camera tests, something that really doesn't really happen anymore because of digital, high definition. But a lot of times in the early 2000s, late 90s, 80s, films were filmed on film. Wild concept, right?
Shocker.
So before they shot it, they would do something called camera tests, and they would test wardrobe, skin tones. They had me come in, and as someone an American or European descent, someone of your skin tone, they would have us interact, and they would use different film stocks and film lighting and wardrobe styles. That was a military film, so they would use different type of camouflage on us to make sure it would work. So that's another part of pre-production. People don't think about bringing a lot of actors in to come in and walk around. They would light a small set, and I was involved with this, and make sure it's lit correctly. Make sure as a person of color, I was lit correctly, because there are quite a few actors who are people of color. To make sure someone who's of a fair skin tone, they're lit correctly. Make sure if they're sharing the same frame, make sure they're both lit correctly. Making sure again the reds, the different colors are shown. The DP, director of photography, for those who aren't familiar in the film industry, was Maddie Lee Boutique, a very phenomenal cinematographer. Mm-hmm. So he came in early and sort of tested that. I got to see the process of camera testing, something that doesn't really happen anymore because of films aren't on film anymore. But that was a really cool process. They faked downtown Jacksonville for New Orleans in the 70s. So it was really cool. So they packed downtown Jacksonville with period cars and period actors and extras. We all walked around, and I made a cameo in that movie. I'm not going to tell you what I did, because you might end up thinking less of me what I did. But it was really cool. It was a really cool experience seeing, and that just reignited my love for period pieces. I love period pieces. Be able to, and on a side note about period pieces, I can't remember her name. She just died today, actually, yesterday. The lady who won the Oscar for art for anyone here seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? The lady, it was set in the 60s, 1969. She turned Sunset Boulevard into period. She replicated 1969, Los Angeles. So she died I think, yesterday. But on a side note, and it was directed by Tarantino. I love Tarantino. So that just whetted my appetite. I'm like, whoa, this is really, really cool. So I applied to film school again. I applied to Florida State. I applied to Columbia, USC, UCLA, and UCF. And this would be for my master's. And not surprisingly, got denied a third time. So, but at that time, I'm like, I cannot live without my parents. I love my parents, but being stuck in Jacksonville, Florida, I was creatively stifled in Jacksonville at the time. I was 22. That's your age, right? You're 22?
I'm 20.
Oops. So I was 21, 22. How old are you? You're like 18, 19? Oops. So at the time, I was 22, and I was like, I can't be in Jacksonville. So I applied to Columbia University in New York City, the alma mater of Barack Obama and Dwight Eisenhower. And of course, I'm like, I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to get accepted. This is for our second bachelor's. So me and my friend, I'm like, what is New York like? So I went up to New York, and I looked at New York. I'm like, I looked at NYU. I don't know if I mentioned, I applied there also. Columbia University and New School of Social Research. And so I went up to these schools, took tours of these schools, and almost all of them were like, you know, come to these schools, that's not happening. I'm like, crud. So I went to Columbia, and I took a tour of the school, and I remember I spoke to the New School of General Studies, and they sort of handle students in my situation. So I talked to the advisor. She's like, you want to come here? No, you can apply, but yeah. So I'm like, I came out of Jacksonville, came out from New York, bummed. I'm like, we stuck in Jacksonville another year. So a month and a half later, I got a call from Columbia University, and they're like, hey. I'm like, who are you? It's like, this is so and so, the dean or the advisor from Columbia University. I'm like, oh yeah, he told me not to apply. Yeah, so I did apply anyway. She's like, I saw. I'm like, yes, why are you calling me? And she's like, well, I want to let you know that welcome to Columbia University. You're accepted. I'm like, wait a second. Columbia University, Joel, didn't you tell me not to apply? She's like, yeah, but congratulations. I'm like, wow. I'll get back to you, because I'll be honest with you, ma'am, it's, after our meeting, I just was bummed, and I'll get back to you. So then I'll she goes, we'll get back to you in the deadline soon. We send you your acceptance letter. Let us know what you want to do. So of course that night I went out to. I did what most Jacksonville 20-year-olds did. I went to Steak and Shake, and I went, late at night. We talked to my friends. My friends were like, get out of Jacksonville. Do you know what Columbia is? I'm like, no, it's Ivy League. It's Harvard, it's Yale, it's Princeton, it's Brown, it's Dartmouth.
That's insane.
It's UPenn. Go, get out of here. So I'm like, you're right. So I accepted, and I went to Columbia University, the alma mater of Barack Obama and Dwight Eisenhower. I went there for 2 years. Happiest 2 years of my life. Happiest 2 years. I was so happy there. When I was there, it was just being around creatives. It was just being in a place where you can do whatever the heck you want and no one cared. It was New York City, baby. You could do it. You could walk around naked. Not that I ever did it. I was watching. I never did that. But it was being around a place. It was so freeing to being in a place where you can do whatever the heck you want. And it was so, you can be as creative as you want. And, Columbia had its film clubs and film societies, and I joined, and it was just, in New York, I will say, you were in the hotbed of film. I remember, Nora Ephron, who directed Sleepless in Seattle, she would teach a couple classes there. Mm-hmm. Is it Andrew Saris? One of the most popular, I think he passed, most famous film critics. I took a couple of his classes. Spike Lee was up the street. So again, all the time, Columbia Film School, a famous filmmaker would do a meeting or a seminar or teach a class there, or hey, I'm this, and you're like, oh, and it was in New York, it was nothing. So I was there. I directed my first documentary. I call it a schlockumentary. It was called Chasing Kevin: The Hunt for a Picture with Kevin Smith. Do you know who Kevin Smith is?
It seems kind of familiar. But
Yes, he did Clerks, Chasing Amy.
Okay.
Yeah, he all of his films are set in New Jersey. So I in New Jersey was like a couple hours away. So I did a documentary with me chasing him down for a picture. So I just wanted to meet the guy, and because I researched him. So it was just, I'm like, he seems like a really cool dude. I want to meet this guy. So I just chased. I stalked. This is the '90s. And this is 2001, before stalking was cool. So I stalked him, and I at the time this film sort of researched his filmography, what he was about. I broke down his all of the films he did in relation to how he became famous. At the time he only did 4 films. Now I think it's only 10 or 15, but he's still trucking. I think he had a bad heart attack, but. He was hustling and bustling. I want to meet this guy, and so I did a documentary where I tried to chase him down and meet him. I just wanted a picture, so it's called Chasing Kevin: The Hunt for a Picture of Kevin Smith. So it was my documentary.
I want to hear your general thoughts for your advice for Gen Z who feels lost, because apparently, we're the lost generation, and we're confused, we're conflicted, we're depressed, we're addicted to our phones. We can't get outside. Supposedly the house market is crap. Everything is supposedly against us. So what do you say for someone like that, especially with someone who's got so much positivity and energy like you do, to make these Gen Z?
Part of it is. How am I gonna say this? I'm not gonna tell you to vote for it.
Come on,
but get politically active, because unfortunately we're in a time, which I'm sort of going through it too, unfortunately, where the arts are seen as a fringe, and it's tough. It's back in the I forgot I think who said this, Churchill. It says a country's culture is inherent for the country's characteristic, and unfortunately, there are a lot of people in power who may or may not believe that. I'm trying to be as respectful to the current situation, but realistic at the current situation. So if you don't like the way things are going, it can be changed. Stay politically active, stay politically aware, stay politically active, stay politically aware. And I say it one more time, please stay politically active, stay politically aware. There are people in power, in our city's power, in our state's power, who wants to put incentives. They want to give grants. They want to give scholarships to filmmakers. They want to see you succeed. They want to see you do well. They want to see your stuff. But again, unfortunately, we live in a time where people are just making ends meet by just putting food on the table, where people are groceries, gas. It's hard. Believe me. Oh, believe me. It's very, very tough. So again, it's not the first time this has happened. Fingers crossed things can change. But again, just stay, proactive and just make sure you know what's going on. That being said, don't be depressed. Stay creative as much as possible, because I have to coach myself a lot of the times. How do I do that? Things like screenwriting, things like write, stay watch. The best. Like I mentioned earlier before we started filming, the most 2 popular films right now are done by YouTubers. That sort of threw me off, actually, because again, someone who, not say I poo-poo YouTubers, but it's like, I'm film school trained thrice, 4 times full, UNF, FSU, Columbia, and Lincoln College. And I guess in a sense, or JU, because I teach there, it's I sort of, not saying I'm a film snob, but seeing someone who, from their garage could have come up with, some concepts and succeeded at it, it's sort of, I had to take a step back and reassess how should I move forward. But don't, because again, although it's depressing on my end, people of your generation, y'all should be thrilled. That is an open door for y'all to get your stuff out. And again, YouTube, Vimeo, and all those TikTok, so I think Hollywood sort of had to take us to, say, wait a second, is this where our new talent's coming from? Social media? And I think it is. So it's definitely good for someone of your age. Someone of my age, like, oh goodness gracious. So I'm sort of thrown off because I'm from the old generation where you wrote a script. You present the script to someone from Hollywood. They're interested in your script. They'll invest in it. That's how you make a movie. That system may or may not exist as much anymore. So again, you have someone of your age demographic. They have way more opportunities than maybe I do, looking for the fresh new thing, the new thing, and YouTube is it. So again, one of my goals for the summer is to research these two directors who did very well, very well. What did they do? What I think Backroom, or in the other one, I can't remember the other one. Can't think right now, but they're doing very well in the box office, and they wrote their films from their bedrooms as 20-year-olds, so they're doing very, very well. So please don't get depressed.
So anybody can do it, is what you're saying.
Oh goodness gracious! I don't want to say that, but I will say the level field has been dramatically altered. Like, for example, smartphones. When I was growing up, we didn't have smartphones, so filmmaking was sort of ushered to a select few. If you were motivated enough, passionate enough, intelligent enough, educated enough, you got access to these equipment, and you got access to places to maybe put your stuff out there. Now it's a free for all. You just, I think I mentioned in our class, like for our final, maybe not for history of film, actually for history of film, when my class option, you can make a film with a smartphone. With smartphones, you can make movies. Films like I can't remember the gentleman's name, the gentleman who won the best picture and best director for the film about the prostitute. He did Florida Project. He did Red Rocket. His first film was called Tangerine. It was about, I think, trans workers in California, I believe. He filmed his movie on iPhone 5s or iPhones. So yeah,
it's doable.
It's very doable, it's awesome. But at the same time, I'm from the generation where you worked hard, rented really good equipment, and your good equipment got you out there. People would watch your stuff because you shot on the good equipment, or you were able to you were seen in a film festival. Now there's online film festivals, and again YouTube. YouTube is, you just got to get the right person to see your stuff. Success can be found from social media. So please, if you're a young person, do not get depressed. I'd recommend writing. It depends. Actually, it depends what you want to do. If you want to be on camera talent, that's something you can do. You see a lot of these vloggers all over the place. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to be behind the scenes, write, put together a scripted, a series, or scripted, a format. I got to her name, the young lady who did. Oh, good gracious! She was in. I should know who she is. She's African American. She got her start doing. She wrote a TV show, a very successful web series while in college. Is it Issa Rae? I think it's Issa Rae, African American young woman, very talented, and she put together her own web series while in college on YouTube, one of those streaming services. Surprise! She kept on hustling. HBO saw it, and look at Lena Dunham is another one. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for young people who are in the film industry, and don't give up. Although even for people like me, it's hard for me not to give up, because I'm sort of in a stuck sort of a situation where if I could take X amount of months off to write a script or write a screenplay or be creative, I got student loans, I've got debt, I've got car payment, I've got credit card payment. So I'm sort of in a very frustrating situation. So, but if you're young, you may not have those situations. You're way more opportunities than I currently have. So again, in another situation, another boon you'll have is YouTube University. Like screenplay writing, there are a plethora of videos teach you screenplay formatting. Like even the program, I was I'm trained on Final Draft, which is a couple $100.
Best of the best.
Y'all have tons of free screenwriting programs that I didn't have access to. You don't know how to write a screenplay? YouTube University. I'm not wired to do YouTube University. When I watch a video on YouTube, bam, it just bounced off my head. I like a class. I like to work with other creators and be in a class format. But I think your generation is wired a little different. You can learn from watching a video. So again, there are tons of screenwriters on YouTube or on social media to teach you a TikTok screenplay format, the 3-act structure, all that stuff. I was on Instagram today actually watching they broke down the Spielberg shot design on Instagram, and they had like a diagram and schematics where they had like a camera where had people walking, and they broke it down and one of his recent films on social media, which I didn't have. Back in the day, if you wanted to do that, you had to look at books. So the opportunities are out there for your generation. It's amazing what 20-year-olds and younger can do. It's just it's stifling. I think something that your generation may need to work at is patience. Filmmaking is a hard career. It's tough. 12-hour days where a lot of times you may or may not, may have to put your phone away. I know your generation, I think phones are part of your instinct to use. Unfortunately, a lot of times on film sets, I've seen as distractions. I've been on many film sets where I see younger production assistants, younger people, they have their phones out and they're like, whoa, the wrong, I think as producers, when I was, I think my producers of my generation might be a little critical of that, but, modern producers maybe so not, but that's something you gotta be careful of, because, it might seem as a distraction from the actual production. So it's, things like posting on social media. I've been on projects where, people, these millennials want to take pictures and Instagram the heck out of their day, but that picture you take it's a licensed property under contract. So you got to be really careful these days with things like that. But I'm so deviating from my point. But there are a lot of opportunities, plentiful opportunities for young people. Now the bad side of that is, yes, there are many opportunities, but I'm trying to think a more kind way to say this. There are a lot of opportunities for the great people. There are a lot of people who might in the mix who, oh goodness gracious, who might be in the film industry for the wrong thing and sort of dilute the opportunities for people who really want to work hard. I think that's the nice way of putting it. I think the candid, blunt way of saying it's like, hey, yes, there are opportunities for smart people to put good work out there. A lot of people have opportunities for putting bad work out there. So there's a lot more. There's a lot more out there, and trying for producers who have money to decipher what's good and what's bad. It's harder. I shot a proof of concept a couple weeks ago, and it was a contest for the Sofia Coppola film grant, and there were 2,000 entries. 2,000 entries. Three people in the room. Imagine 3,000, 2,000 people who were doing the same thing. And I went through them, and a lot of the people who entered, I had to do the good old squint, I was trained on how to do pitches. I'm in the film industry. I know when you're in the film industry and you're given an opportunity to pitch your idea, you have maybe a minute, maybe. There are people who are doing 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. I'm like, oh, dear heavens, you got to get in and out and make your idea and your pitch as best as possible. So again, my point being is there are a lot of opportunities for people who do good work and a lot of opportunities who sort of put it out there at those sort of blocks and distract some people who do good work. But there's the possibilities are endless at this point for young people. So don't be dismayed or don't be dissuaded by what's happening. It's hard. I mean, if you think it's hard for y'all, it was harder for me. We have less ways to get to the people, the powers that be who want to make movies. And I'm almost 50. Imagine, they're looking for young people, looking for the fresh faces. So, I'm in a bit of a conundrum right now. A lot of my friends who originally started in the film industry, they're sort of fading out. They're giving up their dreams, or they're teaching, like I'm doing right now, or they're just giving up and don't do film industry anymore. I know a lot of my classmates from the film, a lot of my classmates I went to school with, either lawyers, they teach. They're doing subjects that aren't in the film industry anymore. So it's sad, but I'm trying to look forward and continue to be proactive and productive.
I love it. Is there anything else you have to add to the people?
Absolutely. I think that one thing I had to mention after I went to. I forgot to tell you something about my mom. I went to Valencia Film School to update my skill set. And again, after my dad passed, I did one of my major considerations I had to take into consideration is my mom going to be okay? And that's actually the behind. That's the back of my thought every time I make a decision in my career is like, how's my mom getting taken care of? So I would love to move to LA, New York, or Atlanta right now, or travel the world doing film productions. But, being the oldest child, I got to make sure, my mom is okay. That's my dad would want. So, currently I'm in Jacksonville. I do teach at a local university, and I do write. One of the good things about being in Jacksonville, less distractions, and that sounds really bad, but I think if I was in LA or New York or Atlanta, there'd be way more people who are doing more things, who pull you away from your focus and your path. I'm saying in Jacksonville there is again less of that because we're not in Atlanta, New York, or LA. But again, it gives an opportunity to I know what I want to do, because my goal for the fall is to just continue writing. And grants, I'm starting an internship for Jacksonville University. I'm hoping to do a documentary and raise funds for a documentary, which sort of goes to my point about, although it's sort of hard for being in the arts right now, the other side, there's a lot of interest in informational pieces. So although, fiction narratives might be going through a problematic stage right now, documentaries are doing very well right now. So I'm looking to get financed into a documentary. I'm actually again putting an internship through the college to grant funding for my documentary I want to put together, and then continue writing.
Good luck.
Oh gosh! And then thankfully there are a lot of grants out there. A lot of people want to put money to finance documentaries, to educate. Because I think we're sort of in a time right now where, oh gosh, we're being smart is sort of poo-pooed on. So there are people out there who's like, hey, we want to, accelerate and promote and, education and being educated in information and promoting history. That's the sort of fad that's happening right now in this current stage, like just brushing aside history, not caring about history. I'll go ahead and tell you what my plan for my documentary is about. I'd like to do a documentary on freedom riders. Are you familiar with freedom riders? I'm so glad you're not. I get a chance to educate you. During the 50s and 60s, and before that, as you're very aware, I hope you're aware, blacks and whites could not work with each other. They cannot assimilate. They cannot associate with each other. It's a sad part of our history in America. And unfortunately, people in power want to erase that. That's unacceptable, but that's what's happening. Give an example. Like I never thought I'd live at a time in our country where, slavery. Slavery. I think in Philadelphia, they're taking away placards that discuss the city's relations. They get rid of it. They want to erase our history. But again, with the civil rights movement, they thankfully in the 60s, people saw that it was wrong for that to happen. That fact that people who are black should be able to associate with people, everyone, they're people. Why shouldn't they be able to have the same rights as everyone else, right? So a lot of people from the North came down to the South, particularly Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and they came down to register blacks to vote, because voting, like I mentioned earlier, voting is power. They try to get a lot of people to be involved politically to change the system. And unfortunately, the status quo really did not like that. They shot and killed and maimed and blew up churches and homes, and just to intimidate people from being politically active, blacks, to blowing up buses. Again, my goal, I like to study. I like to research freedom riders, people who would travel buses throughout the South, white and black, to get people to vote, and people would they'd bomb and shoot or arrest these people on with these on these buses. That's really, really sad. I was talking to a friend about that. How one set of these freedom riders, they were in Mississippi. It was two whites and a black, and they were driving, and the car broke down in the woods, and they found them at night. I don't know if you're familiar with the term sundown cities.
Mm-hmm.
If you're familiar with sundown cities, where they were in a sundown city in Mississippi, and they found them dead the next morning. So it's and a lot of people thankfully did not like that, and they did the right thing by coming down and want to change the status quo. And again, I would like to do a documentary about that. So I'm not get financing for that, and it's tough. But thankfully, we really live with people, educate people in these times. Do want to keep our history aware and make people aware of that what's happening in our history. So again, although I'm not be able to make us focus on narratives, I'm still working on narratives. I like to think we'll get out of the stage or the state in our country where creatives are celebrated again. But till then, I'm made documentaries. I'm looking at that also. So again,
Smart idea.
I don't give up. I've never given up. I can't imagine at this point. Again, there's no point in giving up at this point. What am I going to do? Banking, a cubicle job? I can't imagine that. I'm not designed for that. I think I have a nervous breakdown if I did that. So again, don't give up by no means. If I can do it, and is it easy? No. I'm chugging along. There are some days recently where I sit in my office. I had to apply my palm to my face. I'm just like, am I doing the right thing? And of course, I'm like, you know what? Like, buck up, soldier. Can you imagine doing anything else? No. And just keep on chugging along. To quote the famous fish, Dory, keep on swimming. Because again, a point I want to make: y'all, the opportunities for your generation is endless. Y'all have way more opportunities than I do. And again, post those two rooms, those two films, y'all generation, y'all have it. Hollywood people, I'm on LinkedIn. Are you on LinkedIn? I think we're on. I read LinkedIn articles all the time. They're looking for the next 20-year-old. Hollywood works in trends, and Hollywood works in circles. So again, the trend right now are young people off of social media that are understand the narrative flow, that are social media savvy, that they can bring in and make features. Because again, they connect with their generation, and again, the biggest two films in the Americas right now are from YouTubers. So again, don't worry. I should be worried, but again, am I worried? There's some days I am, but just keep on doing better and keep on hustling, and that's all I can do. Because I look at people like Spike Lee and John Singleton and other filmmakers and Quentin Tarantino, to Spielberg, to I should know this. The gentleman who directed Sinners. I should know this. Ryan Coogler, who had everything against him. Ryan Coogler wasn't even a filmmaker. He was in school for football, and he wrote a story that the drama class liked. And the filmmaker, he's like, you should come in our department. He did. Look what happened. He won Oscars. So it's people like that gives me hope that you just keep on writing. And when I'm working on my script, it's a coming of age drama, and I'm working on my financing for my documentary. So that's what I'm currently doing. It's hard, I'm not gonna lie to your viewers that it's easy, but again, I think a friend one day I was down the dumps. I was really down the dumps. And my friend had to have a conference. For the women, have a support network, because there are some days you're going to be mother snickering bummed, and some days you need someone to call and just say, "Hey, can we talk? Like, I need a pep talk. And then of course, and then she, her name is Fran, and she says, Gerald, if the film industry is easy, everyone would do it, but it's not. So it's hard, but if you just keep on, the people who succeed in the film industry, they're the ones who make it, who work hard and don't give up, and they do what they need to do to make sure they're out there and seen, and being creative, but at the same time make sure they have really good stories, really good narratives that connects with the American public, that connects with film studios, and that can bring a profit for film studios. So the possibilities are endless. And again, if I'm not giving up, neither should you. So just keep on what you need to do to make sure that your creative needs are being met.